Welcome to the Women Get Funded show, where we are dedicated to empowering women founders to shatter barriers and achieve exponential growth and funding for their business. Join us on this inspiring journey as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. With only 2% of venture funding going to women-led businesses and a mere 3% of women-led companies crossing the $1 million threshold, these startling statistics highlight the need for change. I am Coco Selman, 5-time founder, impact investor, creator of the Force for Good business system, and your host on this transformative journey. In each episode, you'll meet a trailblazing woman leader. You will meet venture capitalists, CEOs, successful founders, and experts in scaling business growth. Our purpose is clear. We are here to open doors and provide women founders with invaluable access to advisors, investors, and visionary leaders who share our commitment to creating a better world through women-led business at #WomenGetFunded. We see a future where tomorrow's Amazons, Mercks, Microsofts, and Home Depots are born right here, led by women. They represent the future face of business, and we're here to make it happen. I believe that women-led business is the most powerful, transformative force of our time. Together, we make the world better through business. Are you in? Welcome to the Women Get Funded show. We are dedicated to empowering women founders in shattering barriers of growth and funding for their businesses. Thank you for joining us today as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. And today we have a very special guest for you, Ania Rodriguez, the founder and CEO of JourneyTrack. So Ania is a luminary in the realm of user experience, standing at the forefront of shaping digital landscapes for Fortune 500 companies globally. With an impressive career spanning nearly 2 decades, Ania's profound expertise as a UX/CS strategist and researcher has been instrumental in driving double-digit growth for her inaugural venture, Keyline Interactive. Under her stewardship, KLI has ascended to be a premier user experience research firm in the United States dedicated to a human-first approach in crafting superior brands, experiences, products, and services. Her vision for enhancing customer experience led to the inception of her newest venture, JourneyTrack, an enterprise-grade SaaS platform, revolutionizing how organizations understand and improve their customer journeys. Very powerful tools for all of us to get to know. Before embarking on her journey, Ania honed her skills at IBM, where she excelled in customer experience, branding, and usability. She played a pivotal role in developing web-enabled and desktop applications. She worked with impressive companies such as Citi, American Express, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and more, showcasing her capacity to lead high-performing teams and deliver exceptional user-centric solutions. So we are so excited to have you with us, Ania, and share your journey and your story and all the ways that we can gather from your wisdom. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Coco. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Oh, great. I'm so excited. So as you know, we start with the icebreaker question. What is one book written by a woman that has significantly influenced your life?
So one of my favorite authors of all time, or just speakers in general, has been Maya Angelou. I think the power in her words, how she talks about the human experience in a profound and authentic way has just always really sort of it inspires me. It's a level of advocacy and just an understanding of just empowerment as a whole. And it's just the power of her words just are very I tend to sometimes, either I'll pick up the book of poetry or I even go to YouTube and listen to her speak, just because I find her ability to just really take these words to another level is just it's beautiful.
Oh, she is such an inspiration, isn't she? I mean,
She was for sure.
yeah, yeah, and to go back and reflect on her beautiful words, um, as a founder, right? It's a great way to reconnect with that internal wisdom and find strength to
Yeah,
pursue.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think it's very authentic, very honest. It's that raw honesty that just makes it just so empowering, I think, on so many levels. So yeah, I really enjoy her work.
Wonderful. So, could you share with us the highlights of your extraordinary journey and what led you to create JourneyTrack?
Yeah. So I have a really neat story. I have immigrant parents, Cuban, first generation. I was born in Jersey and we didn't have much money growing up. We moved down to South Florida, an area called Hialeah, which in Spanish, saying in English, it's the city that progresses. That's the way they like to. That's their motto. So it is a sort of immigrant sort of city um, that really has I think has been sort of core to who I was. I grew up there, smart kid, but didn't know what I didn't know. I ended up going and doing very well. Went to a magnet program for high school, and then that led me to Carnegie Mellon undergrad. Um, I didn't know what I didn't know then, and I chose a career in engineering because I was always good in math and science. I also liked the way things worked. And then at the high level, I thought that was going to be enough. But as I got into the engineering world, I didn't like the sitting at a desk kind of mentality and the long wait to become somebody. So that quickly sort of led me to go into consulting at IBM, where I, was selected as one of the top 10 growing women in the company very early on and was sort of groomed along the way to sort of got to leadership roles. Along the way, I started doing I brought in this one SaaS product that was my first exposure to SaaS, was a technology company out of Keynote Systems that ended up going public and then private. That's now Data. But long story short, that was a really good experience because it taught me how to sell in the middle there. And then 2008 happened. They were having a hard year. I was having my first child. I laid off my team. I knew the writing was on the wall. And sure enough, a couple months later, right after I had my first child, they laid off. There were a lot of others, including myself. And I had to that first moment, I thought, oh, wow, this is the moment I either look for a job or I try to do something on my own. And um, it was a day that Obama was being inaugurated that I was at a conference shortly after this. That happened in December and in January at this conference. And I said, I looked at the woman next to me who was my new buddy at the conference, who I didn't really know, but, had been with her all day. And I said, what do I do? And she's like, do I start a company or do I look for a job at this conference? She's like, start a company. So I went down to the business center. I called my husband. I said, hey, set up a business. He's like, what do I call it? And I'm like, I don't know, just pick something. And he gave me three names. Key Lime Interactive was one of the three. And he said, that one sounds refreshing. Do that one. It'll give us ties to Florida. And I went to the business center, printed out some basic cards. I had them print 25 cards. And that's how Key Lime started. Fast forward today, 15 years later, it works with the largest brands, Google, Amazon, you name it. And has, over 50, 60 employees at this time. I no longer run it because when we hit the 10-year mark, I realized I was missing that engineering part of me. And there was a little bit of that wanting to do that. I always wanted to build product. I had tried in year two and didn't know what I didn't know, but now I was at a place where I finally had some level of money, some understanding more of a bit as a business owner. And I started to build JourneyTrack. I actually had 3 ideas and then tested it with customers, and JourneyTrack kind of came out. And so that's what led me to JourneyTrack. And what JourneyTrack is, it's a SaaS product that allows companies, entities to really map the end-to-end experience, whether that is a customer experience, right? What the customer steps in from their perspective, or an employee experience, or melting both of them to understand how those two play together, right? And there's a lot of talk over the last 10 years about, customer centricity and just trying to make the experience better. We as consumers got really sensitive to that around COVID because we finally had to, if you weren't digital, you had to become digital. And so
Yeah.
it is front and center. And so there's a lot more focus than ever. And it's a really great way to get your strategy really pulled together.
Amazing. So I love your story and I love that sort of the ebbs and flows, and you have such the marks of a founder, right? It's almost like you couldn't help yourself. I sort of believe that people that are founders have no choice. They're compelled, right? And then
Always know it. I've known this since I was a kid. I was the kid that had the lemonade stand, even though there was no lemonade stands in Hadley yet. I was the kid that sold the lollipops. I was the kid that took jobs early at 15, 16 because I wanted to understand business. And later on, I always thought I was going to do this. I just, at first it was lack of money and understanding and how to get started. And so it is really hard to take that step. But once you do, you start to learn how to handle those ebbs and flows. Because as an entrepreneur, you take a lot of ups and downs, right? And you just have to learn how to stomach. And I think that's where a lot of people can't stomach as well. And they end up sort of going back, if you will.
totally. And it just speaks volumes to me that you pregnant, having a baby, lose your job, and that's the moment you leave. That says to me so much about who you are. It's like there's an opening for you to step in and you just take it, right? I mean, that could be for somebody else an excuse to not do it. And for you, it was the opportunity to claim your space. And I love that. I love that. I think that's so inspirational. And I also love how you like, look, you didn't have to make it perfect, right? Even though now you're this customer experience person, like there, you don't have to have it all worked out, right? You
So
just start and then you work it out as you go, right? And your customer experience improves as you go, and your messaging and what you're selling, right? All of that, it gets figured out
yeah.
as you go. So you've described a little bit about Journey Track for us. So it is an online space where you can map out your customer or employee or whoever your constituents are that are important to you, and map out their journey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
And
connect all the data that goes along with it that you may know about this customer or this employee, what their needs are, what they're thinking, feeling, doing at each step of the way. Um, I always like to think in the old days, when I was an engineer, people did a lot of process engineering and looking at the processes and how processes went within a business, et cetera, et cetera. Over the last 2 decades, that sort of method still sits out there, but there's with this whole movement towards customer centricity, it's a little bit of the same, but instead of taking it the lens from the business, it's really looking at it from the customer. What are they experiencing? And it's so incredibly eye-opening for a lot of companies that they think they're doing things a certain way, and it seems like common sense to their C-suite, and then
yeah,
it doesn't happen the way they think it's happening, right? So that's been the sort of the fun part of this, right? Part of the tool lets you do workshopping to kind of create what you think is happening, your presumptive journey. This is what it should be happening, right? And then you start collecting data and your customers are telling you like, no, this is not what's happening. Or no, you get two different parts of the business together and they're like, no, that's not the way that we do referrals. And the other team says, no, 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 it is. And they're like, no, 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 I'm pretty sure this is what it is. And then they start having their moment and then they realize neither of them are right. And then you're, oh, wow, no wonder we can't get referrals. That kind of conversations happen more than you think. And it's amazing that the biggest brands, small, big things that you think, oh my gosh, this is so like, table stakes.
yeah,
Doesn't matter.
yeah. And then you find those moments, and and now you can solve for the problem, right?
You solve for it, you track it, you make sure in the old days, they used to print, like you would hire a third party, or you'd do this big initiative, take you anywhere like 6 to 12 months to do these huge maps and hang them on the wall. And they'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's our strategy. The reality, that's not the way things are, right? It's not the static document. As soon as you would print it, it'd be like done, right? Because a lot of things have changed since that moment, that the initial data. The beauty of this is now they can continuously collaborate, update it, bring it up to speed, connect different data sources to it. And then most importantly, they can, they can connect it. If there's something that they're going to fix digitally, they can connect it and track it. Even if it's an in-person sort of a omni-channel experience, they can fix that and track whether they're doing it and the ROI. Like, did it work? Did it not work? Why didn't it work? That kind of stuff gets lost, and they kind of repeat. I often, when I work with some of the larger brands, I see it. I almost have to be like, wait, time out. We've done this somewhere else here. Let me bring what this other team has done to this conversation, because you're about to repeat the same work. I'm like, yes, I can charge you again for this work, but that's not my style, right?
Right.
This is simple. Let's solve, but let's move on to the bigger thing that we need to fix, right? And so yeah, it
That's
happens.
so the technology actually facilitates that and makes it easier for you to sort of see it and change it in real time
Yeah.
and observe it and measure it.
Yeah, and then it looks for trends that might happen. So the thing I just did, where I tell you there's trends or things, 8 areas that two areas of the business might be working on similar themes. It actually uses AI to create themes and says, "Hey, these things look alike. Are they alike?" And if it is, then you should be able to combine them. And now you're going to your IT, for example, and saying, "Listen, we're finding similar things in this two sides of the business. Like, this is high priority because it impacts 2 teams or 3 teams, 4 teams, whatever it is." That's huge for teams that are trying to like get their idea into the queue, if you will.
Yes, yes.
And where the-
So maybe I would love, because this may be very abstract for a founder who does not know what journey mapping is, or really understands the idea of customer experience. Could you share with us an example, either with your own company or maybe a customer that you've worked with, where you can articulate what this all would look like?
Sure, sure. Let's just take flying. We've all flown, right? We all have good and bad experience flying, right?
Yes.
Um, we have it from the second that you're thinking about traveling and you're booking your ticket.
Yeah.
There's an experience there, right? Whether you're going to go direct to one of the airlines, or you're going to use an OTA to sort of book that flight.
Yes.
There's there's expectations of what that is. There's even like when you're thinking about like, let me get some, like earlier, even before that, before you're even booking, you're talking about like, where should I go for vacation? Let me get some inspiration. There's a lot of content to drive to you to get you there, right? The reality is if I was, let's just play into the story. If I was a city, I was a city of Miami or something like that. I was, Miami tourism, if you will. I would want to make sure that I orchestrate an experience it's going to sort of lay it in. So all these partners and all these different ways that people learn about, say, travel to Miami, um, you would want to orchestrate that in a good way, right? So you would want to make sure the content's out there to sort of inspire, different types of, ways that you do that, and measure to see, are you meeting the mark? What kind of positive PR is happening? What kind of negative PR is happening? All that is collected. And that's all the consideration, early, awareness of the city. Like, should we travel to Miami or not travel to Miami? And then as you're considering it, maybe Miami versus Vegas, because maybe you want warm weather and it's cold right now and you want to just get out of Chicago. And so as you do that, they're comparing things, and so how does that sort of play in, and what do you want that visitor to sort of, or that prospective visitor to feel, right? And then as you're booking, what does that look like? As you're thinking about activities, what does that look like? As you're thinking about the flight experience, all that plays in, right? The second you arrive in the city, what does that feel like? From the second you're, get in the car, what does that feel? It's a really, and the reality, and that's those types of, sort of large, if you will, experiences. There's a lot of components, some things that are partner, channel driven partner, and sometimes it's direct. You have, if you're the borough of Miami, if you the travel group, you would, obviously you have certain content that you have in their website, but there's all the other stuff that's happening around you, right? And so So those are the types of things you think about. And that's just a simple example, right? So you could map what that looks like and how you would like it to play out and all the different components that you would want to plug in. And then you can measure different metrics to see, are we driving revenue to the hotels? Are we driving revenue to tourism here, period? And what does that look like? What is that occupancy? There's different measures that they would do to do that. And, is, obviously you've probably been at the airport where people sometimes are doing the little posts, or, surveys at the airport with the little thing. They're also measuring at that time, like, did people have a good experience? Did they not? Whatever that is. But it's very similar whether I take it to that or we have a lot of financial services, a lot of banks, right?
Yes.
That make that the sort of the experience that you have on your mobile device as you're banking on your mobile device online. You're going in and you're seeing a banker or not seeing a banker. What is that experience to teller? And now you're going to go from banking, you need a mortgage, still same bank. What is that experience like? That experience, if you're just a single or multi-relationship customer, is you still want that same experience. You don't want to feel like a different person every time you're dealing with a different part of the bank, let's say, right? Same thing happens when you're dealing with, pretty much literally you can take any business, quite frankly, any business, and this tool benefits any business. If you're just starting up and you're thinking about how are you going to deliver on your experience, and it was built for the enterprise, so it can take some really high complexity where there's a lot of teams, a lot of groups, a lot of individuals designing little parts of it, and
Yeah.
they can see the big picture because if you're tiny, it's easy to see the big picture. But if
Yes.
huge, you think you have such a mess going on that you don't even know what the right hand is telling you, like right now. And then that's when it's the most beautiful because they're like, oh wow, what just happened? How did we do that? And how did no one connects the biggest what they call moments of truth happen between like two different groups trying to connect that experience, two different people own it, and it's always a drop somewhere in the
It's
middle.
always a drop, right?
Always a drop. And then we all right, we're like, I just called, my mobile self-rider. That's the same thing as my internet, what does experience feel like, right? Like it doesn't feel good because I'm like, I am the same customer. I am still your customer here. So yeah, it's all kinds of fun.
Oh, it's wonderful, and I just I think it's profound, and that it helps us as founders and as team builders to connect those experiences and create connection to the value that we hope to bring. Right, every moment is an opportunity to deliver that experience, that value, and I really appreciate the word feelings that you keep talking about. How am I feeling? And I know that's a big part of the customer journey because certain moments you're upset as a customer and some moments you're excited. And how does that experience meet you? So it can't just all be in your head and in your mind, a journey. It really is a full experiential, multidimensional journey. And yet it can be measured, right? It's so terrific. I think it's so exciting. So on your website on JourneyTrack, one of the things that we talk about in the Force for Good system is the importance of having a clear purpose. And you talk about your mission is to humanize the customer experience. Can you say more about this and how this purpose has helped you grow your business?
Yeah. I think oftentimes that it goes back to that sort of core thinking that you just noted. It's, if you are just, taking a very transactional view of the business,
Yes.
you're going to be, you're be just going to meet the mark and that's it. You're never going to have those wow moments with your customers and an ability to just really connect with them and make them feel special, right? For better for all or better, people want to feel special, right? They want to feel like they're being listened to, connected with, that they are understood, right? And so the way you humanize that, you just can't be like, cookie cutter for everybody, right? It's the whole personalization and understanding, individual, or at least, related needs to a certain group of personas so that you can deliver better experiences for those, different groups of individuals that are similar in behaviors, if you will.
So tell us about, you said the word persona. So tell us what is a persona and how do you use it within Journey Track and how do you use it for yourself to grow your company?
Yeah. So basically a persona is very core to any business, right? It's basically who is your customer, right? It's ideally at first it represents your ideal customer or your real customers, because quite frankly, sometimes I was just talking to a customer the other days, and they had built these, ideal customers, but when they actually had real data, none of their ideal customers were like what they thought it was. They had this whole huge segment of other customers that were the ones really buying. Like their ideal customer, they would go and market to, they wouldn't buy. But this other segment was the one that was really sort of who's a real customer. So when you look at it, yeah, you look at where you've sort of headed, but you also have to look at the data. It tells you who your existing customer is and what are their, what do they like, what are they not. And so typically, what's beautiful about creating them within JourneyTrack is oftentimes that I see different groups. The marketing team has their version of what they call a persona. Then you have the product team has their version of what they call the persona. Then you have the sales team who has their version of what's the buyer persona. And quite frankly, there's all these deviations. And every time that, customers want to go run some new campaign or new product, they're like, oh, well, we have a different persona. We can't use those again. And I see this happening a lot. And so a persona, what just kind of defining it, it has, who's your customer, what, it has the demographic information to some levels, at least the ranges of what's more likely to be in that, any psychographic information, their goals, their challenges, behaviors. We tend to focus on behaviors. I see sometimes people build personas based on job titles or this or that. That's not a persona. They're not, just because they have a title doesn't mean they behave the same. Right. And so I
Right.
tell my customers, let's look at their behaviors. Maybe they're using search more. Maybe they're more using let's look at how they think and what kind of patterns they have. Maybe they're more reward driven than others. Like those are the things that are important for you to know. And then there typically is some level of, quotes and anecdotes and things that they like. If it's more marketing, they might be like, where do they go spend their time? What kind of media do they understand? Because they're trying to think about media buying patterns. The sales team might have other things of like, what are their triggers for sales? The product team has information about what they know that what design patterns are important. But the beauty of this is now they can sort of pull it together and create one, like for each type, they can meld it together and say, okay, this is this behavior. And the three teams can now start kind of working with one version of it and collaborate, which is amazing. We're also right now, we have a feature that's in alpha that'll probably be in beta by the time this comes out. It'll allow, we see a lot of customers have a lot of different personas. They end up, they tell you you're supposed to have 4 to 6 at max, but there's more than that typically because everybody does the flavors. And now we're going to look, just like we're seeing theming, we're going to look at what's lookalike so that they can say, okay, looks like these are the grandparents of this persona. And then like, these are all the versions that people have created across, time, because I do have certain accounts that are large that have a lot more, let's just say at least a whole magnitude or two above that number. Right. And so yeah, but it is basically, it's a way for you to really understand who you're targeting, right? Who is it that has that? Who is your customer? What do they expect? And what do they need from you?
Right. That's beautiful. And I was just talking to a client recently, a founder who's building a brand new business, and she was feeling a desire to sort of create her product so that it would be, appealing to these multiple groups rather than sort
Fo-
of one group. What is your advice around that?
Focus, focus. The thing that I see people doing at the very beginning, later on, you can start, opening
Yes.
different segments, but the sooner you're better at one thing and really good and get that, so the more that you understand there's just so much time as a founder, you can't boil the ocean. You have to make choices. And then
Yeah.
especially at the beginning where you have limited resources and money, time, and you just can't spread. So it's so much better to say, look, I'm going to take 3 months, maybe it's 6 months. I'm going to focus on this specific target,
Yes.
and it doesn't mean that you don't close it. Like if something comes in from the left, you're not going to say, "Oh wow, I wasn't really, targeting this customer," and for all you know, you missed something, right? So you got to be flexible enough to understand you may have not had it right, right? So but yeah, focus and just try to take your best shot and just stay focused because it's the more that you do this and that, the more that
You're
you're
going to
gonna
miss the mark, right? It's just not going to, you're not going to meet the need.
yeah, and it's just like even your as you put I've always found it's kind of fun. It's just like crazy, right? As we start just really focusing our marketing message in one group,
Yeah.
right? It is amazing. It takes like 2, 3 months, but before you know it, it's like ding, ding, ding. It starts to hit, and you're like, oh, it's actually working. You're amazed, but it actually does work as soon as you got to focus because then it starts to really sort of before you know it, we have one area of the business that like literally we put a couple, we it was one of these ones that we got surprised with. But it's become and it's interesting, like we put a little bit more money in there and it's like now grabbing. It's like amazing that we have like this segment that is and it's and you start learning, you're like, okay, this is interesting. But that doesn't mean that I don't take away the focus. Okay, I'm still here. I might
Yes.
take a little bit to the left,
Yes.
make sure I don't lose something big because sometimes that happens.
Well, and you have to have it, as you said, you have to have the bandwidth
Sure.
to devote to
Yeah.
these multiple segments or personas because they all have nuance and need and so you can't boil the ocean. So tell me about how you have chosen to grow JourneyTrack. What has been your logical thinking about how to approach the market?
Yeah. So initially, we found so we know that there's a level of maturity in enterprise companies initially, right? There this type of methods and ways to do business transformation. And really this is the journey mapping is just a way to really transform the business, to really transform it from a non-customer driven sort of business to a customer driven business, right? And so a lot of the large entities have used this as a means to get to that, right? And really sort of target it. So initially we knew that there's been an ongoing sort of maturity that's been happening over the last 2 decades with a lot of the big consultancies pouring a lot of money into like selling these services, educating, the big brands about how to do this, why to do this, and all that. So there was a little bit of that market, right? And then so that was sort of the initial thinking. And granted, I've always been exposed to enterprise. So I've had a little bit, my whole career has been working with enterprise. So I have a little bit of that sort of naturally already, sort of worked through so many years of working with the enterprise. But what we sort of focused in, we said, okay, we can't pick, there's a lot of industries. Let's pick some ones that are really sort of, out there, right? And initially we found that banking was one that was just working easily for us. Now pharma has shown up and pharma is very mature and ready to go. And even though they're just starting to step in, they're trying because they have to now do other things and they need to make sure that they are marketing in certain ways. And so that's been an interesting new one. And then there's been, the agencies are a natural one because they're delivering on this work. So the relationships from a channel marketing perspective is always easy. And then there's others that are popping in, little ones that I'm just like, wow, this is interesting, right? But the reality is even with all these sort of efforts that we do, we get like, really like we've had some really fun ones that I'm just like, wow, I had no idea that they were so, working like these federations, like these entertainment federations that you're like, well, that's kind of fun. But, they're really kind of, and so there's some fun ones that are coming in that I'm just like, oh, that's going to be fun to work with. But yeah, it reality, it could be any business. I mean, for on purposes, anything works here. Like I just recently did a pitch in New Orleans and a couple of the startups there like reached out and I was like, hey, we have this new plan for those that just are starting, if you will. And so check it out and let's talk through it. Most of the time when you're doing any type of accelerator, they're going to teach you about this stuff because it's so core to like understanding
Yes.
out there.
Absolutely. And so for you, it sounds like you were a person who had a experience, right? You already had relationships and connections and an understanding of how to sell into SaaS or sorry, enterprise. And
Enterprise.
so into enterprise. So you knew already how to do that. So that was one piece. And then there was this macro trend that was happening at the same time where defining your customer service was sort of something everybody was trying to do because we needed to become more customer focused and customer centric.
Yeah.
So then you said, okay, well, which markets? So how do you see? Because as I know, we'll talk about this a little more in a bit, but I know you've been funded, you've received venture funding, you've self-funded a bunch of it. Um, Growth is obviously important to your company. So how do you see your strategy for growth? What do you think? Is it adding on new markets, adding salespeople? Is it like, how are you thinking about growing the company?
Yeah. So we had an amazing thing that happened this week. We were the highest rated in our category for G2. We just got rated. And so
Oh, that's
um
great. That's great. I know you were talking about that when we
yeah, so we have had a lot of a lot of the third party validation is happening, which, it's third party, it's, our customers giving feedback, them doing assessing things, and we're getting a lot of really positive momentum that way, which really accelerates it from a growth strategy. So for me, it's, a little bit of what happens now is a lot of brand awareness, right? So I have to do all these third party things to create that sort of pop, right? And
Yep,
get them to validate my system. So that's part of the growth strategy, right? So like the more that this is advice to those that are sort of out there thinking about how to, get their brand really going, you have to go to the third parties. And sometimes it's pay to play.
yep,
But that doesn't mean you're pay to win. It's play to play. Just play. And then just they're gonna rate you with the way it is. You're gonna either be at the top or the bottom, and that's what it is. But there's a lot of that happens, right? Um, and then from there, we naturally, without realizing, have had some Europe and Australia customers. Um, and as we were going through one of these third party assessments, we learned that sort of, we needed to strengthen our international presence. So for us, we had to do a little bit of an early shift because we learned in order to get certain things with these third parties, sometimes it's a little bit of awareness. And not only that, we learned that like in our space, UK and Italy, and we're also seeing Australia is really big on all this type of work, right? And so we naturally were getting them, but we weren't picking at them. That was just them finding us and learning about us. And we hadn't really looked at it. This is where these unexpected sort of, wow, there's something there, right? So for us now, we're starting to look at a lot of channel partners in a lot of countries, resellers and things like that. Some pretty big agreements with some consultancies because I mean,
yes,
the sooner that we can sort of expand out, the faster that we can do it. We're still early, right? We don't have the huge, budget yet, right? We have, to your point, we have funding, but it's not like, we're at a point that we could just be like, let's just, set up a bunch of new people. We have to be very mindful of as we hire and grow, right? And so
yes.
for us, it's finding good partners, good, channel, opportunities, and the like, and referral partners, right? And so, yeah,
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that because it's so important, right? Growth doesn't just happen, right?
no,
We have to have a plan and think through what our opportunities are for growth, and then things will change, right? So you have to have the information at your fingertips, as I know you do, because you have your own system in place, I'm sure, that helps you track what's working, what's not. Well, who's my customer? Like, wow, suddenly here out of nowhere, got this, textile company out of, Italy that's interested. And that wasn't part of one of our personas, but here it is. And how do we learn from it? How do we expand? And I love how when you have all those pieces laid out from the beginning, a pivot like that or an addition like that becomes so much more possible because everything's already
yeah,
there, right? The foundation is there and you can just tweak the foundation rather than having to like, well, how do we rebuild this? No, you don't have to. Just this tweak, right? Along the customer journey.
yeah. The beautiful thing is, I also hired my senior leadership team is a very experienced team, right?
Right.
I've
Right.
done this differently a lot of different times, and School of Hard Knocks taught me the first time you try to do things wrong, and you end up with the wrong people, and that's just a bigger headache. So getting the right people in the right seats the sooner you can, the better it is, right? And so those are the types of people who've been through some of these already. They can tell you, shift here, do this change. Let's okay, fine. We need to do this. Let's move. There's a level of like for me, um, ease in knowing that I don't have to worry about sales and marketing, how they're going to shift because they're both my people are very knowledgeable and they know, what to do. And, and if they don't, they're gonna tell me, hey, I don't know what to do. And then we're gonna put their heads together and be like, okay, let's figure out what our next move is, right? Because it's, you still get to do things happen. It's no matter how much more experience you have, things are shifting, right? There's a lot of changes happening right now with all the AI work, and you kind of say, okay, is there a better way to do what we're doing? Like, are we
Yeah.
doing it the right way?
I love it. And Anya, I think it's such a gift of wisdom to share about your team and that you're not the one who's making all of the decisions, that you have a team in place of wise experts who complement you, right? Like there's no other way, right?
Yeah, you have to just learn, let go of the vine. And I learned that through hard knocks through the years. It took me a lot to just let go and just be like, okay, I can't control everything. I can't do everything. I need to just have good people that I can just be like, just, do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect. You said that to me earlier. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't expect perfection. Let's just do the best we can. And it shifted and changed and we just learn from it and keep going. Okay, what
Yeah,
did we do? That didn't work. Let's try this other thing. Right. And so,
exactly. Exactly. I love it. I love it. So tell us about how you funded this enterprise and your logic and your thinking about how sort of the strategy behind it as well.
yeah. So the other business, I literally did that with sweat equity, right? I started with like $500 and grown that to whatever, 9+ figures, 10 figures. Um, but um, but now this is different, right? I realized it took me 15 years to get, that big, right? And it's just a lot of time and effort, right? So
Yeah,
I said, I want to do this differently and I want to get funding. I want to see what that experience, because that's the one thing I've never done, right? I've never had, you know, and I'll tell you this, for me, I found it lonely because it was lonely at the top, right?
totally.
It, and now having investors and a board it's such a great thing. I needed it. I realized how much I needed to have that sort of, that support and that sort of need to like be able to sort of help get out there. But yeah, so and I started raising capital last year. It wasn't easy. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And they tell you if it's hard for women, it's 10 times 10. I kissed a lot of no's and got a lot of no's, and I said a lot of ugly things that I really thought that I never had experienced. Working with the types of brands that I have in the other company, like they're the everybody's dreams companies, right? The people you dream, and like I never experienced any type of discrimination or any type of thing. But in the world of funding, it's a totally different thing. You do feel that and you feel it in such a hard thing. And it's just amazing that there's a lot of things that need to change in that world. Right. And so for me, it was interesting when I finally met my lead investor. I just knew it's like the same thing when you meet your spouse or husband, for me, it felt like, I knew it was amazing because you just click in a way, and even then, like, everyone else I brought on, it was the same thing, like, I kinda knew it, and I learned how to just it's but what they happens is they share your values, they appreciate what you're doing, they're really committed to helping you. I mean, it's amazing that the all the investors I have that are helping me, that are saying, let me set you up with this conversation, let me set you up this other conversation. That's what I need the most right now, right? I know a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I need to know more people, right? There's never enough of that, right? And so for me, it's like the days I had one of them introduce me to, like a dream company in Italy, like one of the ones that you'd be like, oh wow, you know, those high end cars, you're like, I need to work for this. I need to make sure we do this one, right? And it's amazing when those things happen, right? Because you're like, that was a C-suite person that got into, that I had a 45-minute conversation with. Those
Wow.
types of conversations don't happen easily, right? And that's amazing, right? Um, but yeah, so for me, the funding was hard. I'm so thankful that it's for now. I mean, we're now as we expand to Europe, we might pick up a little bit more money because that wasn't part of the plan, and I'm realizing I might need a little bit more as a little bit of a step up between my next rounds. And so I'm exploring some very targeted, funds to do a little bit of not a bridge, but like almost a safe against the next round. Um, but even then, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time because I also don't want to go do the problem of like getting too much money early and just depleting myself too much, and it's hard.
Right. Right. You don't want to give up all your, all of your equity. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So you gotta balance that whole game out a little bit. So,
And tell us about, I think I know who your lead investor is. Who's your lead investor?
but elevate capital.
Uh-huh. That's
They're
right. That's
very
right.
based, very friendly to female founders and minorities. Very centered on that. Just a really neat team of, quite frankly, mostly men, but like amazing men that
Yeah.
that are just dedicated to doing right, and just they meet, like I have, I meet with one of the advisors I have monthly, and he's an AI guru, like guru. He's amazing, and he's the one that he's always looking out for me. And then similarly, I have Carmen from 2045. She's amazing. She's the one that gives me the most leads. She's hands down my number one like cheerleader there. Or really just someone I'm not gonna use the word cheerleader, but someone who's constantly looking out for me and things like that. And just constantly making some introductions. And it's just the community that you get right with that. That's why I tell you, when I did it the other way, it's harder where you try to
Yeah.
do the support. And when you have people invested in you and they want you to win because it means their win as well. It's a totally different, shift, right? And that's how you can really sort of move quickly, because otherwise look, I'm going to get there regardless, whether I take if I take it slow, that's
Yeah.
going to take forever. But it's so much nicer when you have like people who
Yes.
help you along the way.
Well, I love what you just said too, because I think sometimes we think when I talk to founders who are trying to get funded, um, I think of it as binary. I either get funded, or I don't. And you can I feel it's important to have the mindset that failure is not an option. I'm going to keep going, whether I go slow or go fast. There's
Yeah.
always another step to take
Mhm.
in moving forward, gathering traction, right? And as you grow your company, every day you grow traction, you become more and more and more fundable, more valuable. Your valuation goes up, right? It's more interesting to more players. You want to hold on to your equity, right? I think too,
Sure, for sure.
for as long as you can, right? It's a balance. So, what would be some? Thank you for sharing your journey, because I know that's a really hard piece.
One thing, Coco, I would tell folks who are thinking and thinking about how when they're getting stuck there, if you're finding yourself stuck and you can't get funding, I'd invite you to go talk to your customers, understand what's working or not, and keep it, because that is such like set up a you have 5 customers, set up those 5 calls, do deep dive in understanding what's working, what's not working, what do they like, kind of use that language to help you kind of sort of like get out of the gutter if you're in the gutter. Because if you're stuck in like that gap, you need something to help you. And then they're going to tell you what's missing. And then it's interesting. If you're on the right path, even if you're not getting funded, you're going to be like, I have the right path. You realize your customers are like, yes, um, I, I'm on the right path, and, we're good. And
Yeah.
so,
It's you have to be brave, right? To ask those questions. There's a bravery, a vulnerability. This is something that, like, one of the things I love about the customer experience whole sort of genre of philosophy is you are asking for advice from your customers. You're asking for feedback, and you're being willing to hear the things that aren't working,
yeah,
right? That takes guts,
yeah,
right? You
yeah.
have to not be precious about everything you
But
want.
it's amazing what I find, and this goes to another book I like with Brene Brown with all the vulnerability stuff. When you're vulnerable, it's amazing how much your customers appreciate the fact they're like, listen, I don't know if I had this right. Can you give me feedback? What am I missing? They love that because
Oh,
they feel like, okay, you know what? She's, to your point, she's brave enough to kind of ask me that question, and she wants to hear what I have to say. And so they feel, to the point earlier, they feel like, okay, I'm helping, and that's such a great feeling. And that's just that really sort of they're part of it. And this, they always tell you this in business period, right? When people feel part of it, they feel like now they're integrated. And if they fail, if you fail, they're failing. So they don't want you to fail. So now they're going to make sure that they pull, and they help you, save the day, if you will. So I find I don't, I think that's been sort of one of my superpowers is I find it, I don't have, I'm willing to ask for help and I'm not, and I don't have any, I don't get that pride like, oh my gosh, I know everything. I know I don't know everything. I know that I need people to help me get there. Right. And so it's part of it.
Wonderful. So I have one last question for you about before we talk about how we can support and serve you. But what what would you recommend for founders? The startup journey is a roller coaster. What wisdom can you offer to our listeners about leading through the ups and downs?
Yeah, I think you have to like this has taken me probably until you need to learn how to like there's gonna be points that get super scary, especially when it goes down that you're like, oh my goodness, how am I gonna make payroll? How do I do like those moments you're like, what do I do now? In those moments you have to just like you have to be able to get yourself out of that sort of moment as fast as you can and go back to just like, let's build and do this. I'm actually reading this book. This is the first time I'm reading it, Gap in the Game. It's for high performers. Oh my
Yeah.
God, amazing mind shift. I don't know if you're ever in that gap moment. I've had those way too much. As a leaders, we tend to be in those gaps often, right?
I have it here. I have it on my silk back here.
Oh, I
Dan
would
Sullivan, right? Dan Sullivan.
I-
He's my coach.
wow, amazing. So yeah, it is amazing. It is those moments that you just have to be like, okay, I need to like get out of this fast and figure out what I have done well, and then get my head going back to the next goalpost because you just otherwise you're gonna get your stuff. You're gonna get there's gonna be a lot of tough moments. That's the thing that really distinguishes someone who could be a founder or not. Can you stomach these ups and downs? Because it's there. And
It's
you
hard, right? You feel like,
for it is super like, there's moments and then when it's up, it's fine. Everybody's happy. And it's down, you're like, you're on point. You're the one that doesn't sleep. And you're the one that's like, how do I get this solved? And again, it goes back to ask for help and figure out who can help you, right? And there's that other day. I haven't read the other book, but it's supposedly the how, not the who, right? Or something like that.
yeah, who not now?
I mean, who, not how. There you go. Right? And there's something like that. Yeah, that's the next one. That's my next graduation, right? But I think I've learned that naturally, right? Is can help you at that point, and
Yes,
who
yes,
can
yes.
to the next level.
It's wonderful. So tell us, Anya, how we can support you. What can we do to support you in your build right now? Are there introductions? Are there leads from our community? And tell us what we can do to support your venture.
Yeah, for me right now, it's introductions.
Yeah.
And it's all about that, right? I am in growth mode. I need to show successes. I need to push and get, new people starting to use the application, and really just get, build. And so the more that we can continue to use it and get new prospective customers, that to me is that's where now it's just about continuing to show, successes, right? And so that's the most important thing for me right now.
Great. So introductions, ideally, you're focused on enterprise. So if you know people that are in the enterprise space,
Ideally an enterprise or channel partners in Europe that I can, use because I'm or European, you know, corporations, enterprise corporations too, because apparently they are more ready than the US sometimes. Those are great things. Yeah.
awesome. And how could a founder who's listening experience JourneyTrack? Is that something that's possible, or is that
So yeah, so there's a 30-day free trial available on the website. That gives you the basic sort of which is probably what you'll need at your level at the start. And then there's a conversion at a really low cost for you to use it after 30 days for small and medium businesses. Start looking at, only a sort of subset of journeys and things like that. And so it makes it very accessible. That's something that we just literally just added in to sort of continue to sort of grow that and sort of build out, um, give you sort of those capabilities that can help businesses, right? And make it
oh,
more accessible to all.
I think it's so exciting, Anya. I do, because so I have to tell everybody. So Anya and I met I think in February, right? We met in February and we came together. I was hosting a How Women Lead event to help women become venture investors, right? The new table campaign. And Ania came up with Carmen, who runs 2045, who's the founder of 2045 Ventures, and she came out from California, and we hosted a group of ladies, and we talked about venture and how important it is for women to invest in venture. And that's when Ania and I got to meet, and I got to learn about her tremendous company. And at the time, you didn't have anything for small and medium-sized businesses. So I got to tell you, I'm going to be the first one to jump on board and get myself a free trial and start using it, because this to me is this is really transformational work when you can do this kind of customer mapping and journeying and connect it with data and see results and improve your outcomes. Growth is a puzzle you can solve, right? If you have it, right? So I'm super excited about this offering. And also remember, everybody, please, if you know anyone who is in the enterprise space, especially like CMOs, right? Customer experience type of directors, those are going to be the types, banks, financial services, but really across the board, this is anyone who has a customer who cares about their experience, right? So we thank you so much for being here today with us, Ania. I wish that I could just get into your brain and understand more about all your customer journey and experience wisdom, because it's just, I know that there's a lot that you have learned and are leveraging in your own business, and it's very exciting. So thank you for joining us today on Women Get Funded. Thank you for illuminating the path and unlocking opportunities for growth and prosperity for women-led enterprises. The world is made better by women-led business. Now, let's all go make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready to take the next big step in planning, propelling, and funding the exponential growth in your high-impact business? Welcome to the Force for Good Business Accelerator. The next step is the Force for Good Business Accelerator. At a Force for Good, we know that growth is a puzzle you can solve. You too can cross the chasm of scaling and funding at www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator. Designed for women founders and their teams, this virtual experience is your opportunity to immerse yourself in a transformative process that will create a flywheel effect for your entire company. First, you'll build and implement a growth plan. This plan will be designed to help you accelerate product market fit and fine-tune a go-to-market strategy that produces more prospects, more customers, more traction, more growth. Next, you will explore all the many options for funding your business, from angel investors to venture, crowdfunding, grants to loans. We will help you explore every option available to ensure you always have the fuel to keep growing. Along the way, you will elevate as a transformative leader, discovering clarity, confidence, and wisdom with each step along the journey. We will guide you every step of the way, and with options for additional support available to help you grow more quickly, we help you believe in our mantra that growth is a puzzle you can solve. Learn more about the Force for Good Virtual Business Accelerator today at www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator. That's right. www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator.